Today is another Friday, and it is also the first Friday of April. And I'm so glad to be with you for my Friday forums. My name is Cindy McDonald. Many of you have joined me in past weeks, but if this is your first Friday forum, I'm so glad to have you. And I'm especially excited because I have as my guest Christine Bowman from Southwestern University. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks so much for having me back. I have enjoyed our conversations in the past and look forward to working with you and your colleagues for the next hour or so.
Thank you. And we are too. We're going to talk about a topic I don't know that anybody has ever really addressed. And so I knew exactly who to go to talk about this. As everyone is joining us, we've already got 50 people. So you can tell this is a popular topic. Put your name and where you're from so that you can see each other. We can see where you're from, and Christine can see too. So make sure you turn the chat to panelists and attendees so that everybody can see. So as you're joining our webinar today, please put in where you're from and your name. It looks like we've got Ellen from Marin County. We've got Eric from Needham, Oregon, San Francisco, Irvine. We've got Jeff joining us today. Chicago.
Hey, there's a Texan. That's exciting.
I think we end up with lots of Texans. So at least you guys aren't having snow and wind and tornadoes and things like that right now, right?
That's right. It's gorgeous in Texas today.
We often have people from Colombia, India, all sorts of different places. So as people are joining us, we expect a full house today, and we're going to talk about a topic that has to do with technology and something that I think a lot of us don't quite know or understand. But Christine, I wanted to share with people, you are the Dean of Admissions and Enrollment Services at Southwestern University, and you also serve as the chair for Colleges That Change Lives. And yes. I think that's really significant. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I grew up in Houston and did the world's worst college search for someone who now serves as a dean. I look back on it and I'm almost embarrassed at how I conducted my college search, but the end result was amazing. And I landed at Southwestern University. It was absolutely the right fit for me. And I loved my experience there. Like many who enter the world of admission, I was a tour guide. I was also a phone ambassador, and it was that connection that ultimately allowed me to come back. My supervisor was leaving to go to graduate school and said, "Hey, I think you would be really great at this job. Do you want to consider it?" And 26 years later, here I am serving as the dean of my alma mater. And have loved every unique aspect I have served on the admission staff. I did an internship in financial aid once, so I have some great experience and knowledge from that side. But I have recruited big territories and small territories. I've worked with alumni. I've done technology. I've done marketing. I've done international students. And so I've worked with some private scholarship programs. I've really kind of had, and currently I work in our athletics area. And so it's a fun thing to dabble in a variety of ways. But I have enjoyed my time on the CTCL board as well. We're a working board of individuals that support the ctcl.org organization and the 44 member colleges that are a part of that, and really helping students find the right fit in their college search journey, much like many of you all work to help your students find the right fit. So there's a lot of parallels today.
Oh, absolutely. So for those of our attendees who may not know exactly what CTCL, Colleges That Change Lives, bless you, can you explain a little bit further bless you again, what that is and why is it this group of 44 colleges?
So the Colleges That Change Lives was originally a book that was written by Lauren Pope, who was the former editor of the New York Times education section. Many of you may be familiar with his book, Looking Beyond the Ivy League. And when he was writing Looking Beyond the Ivy League, he actually was doing research on an additional group of schools that he felt was a little under the radar, but really were going to make a difference in students' lives and their ability to go to college and have a life-changing experience. And that was the book that became, or the research that became, Colleges That Change Lives. That book has now been released 4 times, once after Mr. Pope's passing, with the collaboration from a family-approved writer. And in each of those editions, the majority of the schools have remained the same. And about 20 years ago, we formed a nonprofit organization that really kind of operated under the mission of helping students find the right fit. We don't have an official affiliation with the book, although we have all been featured in the book at some point in time. And so today, in a normal year, we travel 4 times a year around the country together. We offer ourselves as experts to potentially serve on panels or presentations for your families. We are colleges that are committed to helping students have a fantastic educational experience, but are heavily liberal arts and science oriented. 40 of the 44 schools, 42 are private, 2 are public. We're located all throughout the United States. And if you're not familiar with the book or the website, I see Cindy threw the website into the chat. I encourage you to go and look at it and see and learn about our member institutions. There's a great search feature for both academics and athletics on the CTCL website. We have a smattering of Division 1, 2, and 3 institutions within our body as well. But primarily, we are liberal arts focused, even in our public institutions that are a part of our organization.
And I think that's an important distinction to have, is the, that it's liberal arts and science and all those different perspectives. So I would encourage people, if you're not familiar, look at the ctcl.org and explore it. It's just a wonderful opportunity. So what is right now then, what is your passion? You've got this background, you've done all these different things, you're working with CTCL. So right now, where you're at in your life, what is your passion, Christine?
A lot of the CTCL mission has bled into me, and I think it actually was part of who I am in my quest in working in higher ed. I just believe that fit-oriented searching is the right thing. Maybe it's because that is what I grew up in at Southwestern. That was the right fit for me. I was admitted to some great institutions, but they just didn't seem like they were going to help me accomplish the goals that I wanted to. And while I could have been somebody that would have been just fine at a larger school, that smaller school environment was right for me. So I, in my own professional kind of mantra, very much take into the philosophy of, my school may be fantastic. It may check lots of boxes, but if it doesn't feel right for you, you've got to find the right place. And I actually had one of these conversations with a student last night that was really struggling between my institution and an honors program at a large state school in which she had won a large scholarship, and where was going to be that right balance for her. And I think I left her with more questions than answers, because that's what I think is the right thing to do. And I did a little bit of selling of my institution, but if it's not the right place and you're not going to stay, then that's not the right place to come to. So there's my professional passion. But my personal passion is getting through this pandemic and getting back on an airplane and traveling again. I have missed that part of kind of my life, and I enjoy seeing other parts of the country. I have been blessed to be able to travel as part of the profession and to meet great colleagues, but I'm ready to get on an airplane and do some fun traveling.
And I think a lot of us have missed that aspect. I know we've all been doing conferences remotely and all, and that's been great. And I see that continuing, but that one-on-one contact of being able to come together around a certain, concept or cause or, conference has been really missing. So yeah, I'm with you there. That's why I do these backgrounds, so that everybody, we can travel vicariously. So,
that's right.
So if anybody recognizes where I am today, put it in the chat and I'll tell you at the end. And Christine, you can't tell because you already know.
That's right. I won't give it away, I promise.
So this brings us to our topic for today. So Slate is something that we hear as college advisors. We hear college representatives when we're on the chats and forums and Facebook and places like that. They talk about it, but we really don't know what it is. So can you share what is Slate?
Sure.
And why is it, why is it needed?
So at its very basics, and I should say, I don't work for Slate, but I am a follower without a doubt, and you'll see my enthusiasm throughout our conversation today. Slate is at its simplest, it's a CRM. It is a, content management or customer relations management product, very simply. And when they formed with the higher education space specifically in mind. I think you may know in the business world, there are lots of customer relations management products out there, and sometimes they try to fit into the higher education model, but the things that we do are not always the same as what is done in the business world. And so there's just lots of those experiences that sometimes don't translate. There are also very large, broad institutional systems that may manage the business office and manage human resources and other parts that sometimes don't manage the admission function particularly well. So Slate started, and I think we were in the 100s of the company joining as an institution. We were the first institution in Texas. And now there are over 1,300 schools that are choosing to use Slate. And it really kind of has three components to it. It has an admission function to it, which is why we are all sharing interest in learning more about Slate. It has an advancement function in it, which if you think about it, the names that come in and ultimately become admission parts eventually roll into the institution. They're the people that advancement wants to work with, either the parents or the students as they become alumni. So that kind of fluid element makes a whole lot of sense. And more recently, they've added a chunk in the middle. They've added a student success component. And once again, the students that you have worked with through the admission process are now inside of it. Now you have all the same information, you have their background information, you have details about their high school experiences and who they are that can flow into student success, and then student success eventually flows into advancement. So it is really becoming a powerhouse tool. The other thing that Slate has figured out, which makes it so cool and kind of why it has been very well embraced by institutions, is that the previous products that had been on the market, and some still exist, might fit into the institution's overall system. But then if we wanted to send a mass email, we would have to contract with this vendor over here. And if we wanted to manage travel, that really didn't fit into that system. And so we were doing that on some Excel spreadsheets or some Google Drives. Our applications, when I started this journey, as many of you may have remembered, applications were in paper form. This now allows you to manage applications within the system itself. It allows reading of applications to be done. It allows analytics to be done. It allows event management and registration to be done. It allows data management to be done. And the beautiful element of it from an IT perspective is that it's all in the cloud. And so it's not a burden to your IT staff either. I'm going to stop there because we've got an hour, and B, you can already hopefully see my enthusiasm in regard to Slate. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, I have a very excited face and I'm very animated because it's a cool product. And I think what is a unique element of it is that it continues to find ways to serve all the populations that feed into enrollment. And I'm going to highlight a few things that you could actually use Slate for, even though you don't work on a college campus. So we'll kind of go from there.
Well, and I think that you've brought up a really good point, and that Slate and also it shows your approach as a university too, is that you guys were all early adopters, that you saw this need. You're trying to piecemeal all these different technologies, tools, things to accomplish your goals, and having to do it from lots of different places is not very efficient nor effective, and it's hard to maintain over a long period of time. So the fact that you recognize here's an issue, there's a company that came along and said, okay, we're going to help you solve this, and you were first to jump on the boat and say, here, let's go. You've probably helped drive some of the changes in the direction of what Slate has and what it has to offer. Have you seen that, Christine?
That's one of the great tools. And when you were talking about being an early adopter and recognizing the benefit, I'll never forget, my colleague and I were sitting, we watched this video presentation of Slate together, and he leans over to me and he says, we're driving a Model T admission product, and this is like a Lamborghini. We've got to get this. We've got to write this proposal, and fast. And luckily, it was an immediate approval. We were able to justify the costs. We were able to talk about how we would pull it all in one tool. And if you've ever worked on the college side, or you've ever heard college colleagues talking about their CRM, sometimes their CRMs are limited in the number of users. Slate does not have that restriction. So I have colleagues in the fine arts that we give permission to. We give certain level of permission to our coaches. They don't get access to everything, but they have some usage. All of my staff has it. All of our financial aid staff has it. So there's one element. The other thing that I will constantly shout from the mountaintops about Slate that is so very different from the other tools that are often out there is Slate has figured out a business model that when a client says, hey, I think this could be really helpful for us. Could you do this? Could you do that? And then all of a sudden I look at it and say, yes, I could use that. And somebody from another college says, yes, that would be fantastic. Then they just release it to everybody. There's not this, I have to buy the 2021 package of Slate to buy my upgrades, or I have to buy the 2025 package because the package is so expensive. I have to save for 4 years to be able to get there. Any new product, any new cool toys or cool tips that Slate releases, you get it as part of their contract. It is the savviest of business models. And it's one reason why they have something crazy like a 99% retention rate on their campus. And so, of their product, people just realize that this is a phenomenal tool. So, like I said, if you can't see me, I'm beaming, I'm smiling, I'm energetic. It's a really cool thing. And what I'm going to share with you as we continue talking is that it started out just for colleges, but they've realized there are important partners in this. And somebody asked a minute ago, I'm happy to pull up a Slate screen from my perspective so that, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit and I can pull up a name of a student and I'll let you see what it looks like from our side, because it is kind of a weird concept to be hearing all about this. And then you're like, okay, so what is absolutely so great about this? So Cindy, you and I can kind of flow. Yeah. Feel like there would be a space in which we can do that. I'm happy to pull it up.
Sure. Yeah. It looks like we're getting lots of chats in the, people in the chat saying, oh, I want to see what it looks like. So
sure.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, I know people would absolutely love that. So let's talk a little bit about how does it help you meet your institutional needs then? Like, how do you use that to, build a class or find, you talked about your passion of helping students find the right fit. So how does it help you find the right student to fit into your campus?
So I don't think it works in a vacuum. It is not the end all be all. And my guess is lots of institutions will say that there are still some other external partnerships that they use to accomplish overall goals. But so I'll give an example of that. we work with an outside data management source to evaluate our pool for the likelihood to enroll. And we have a space inside of Slate where we record that likelihood to apply score and a likelihood to enroll score. So if we're doing an activity and the opportunity for my staff is limited to invite people from their territory, they might use that data to limit it to invite those students that we have done some predictive modeling on to say, these are the students that are most likely to apply. And so let's invite those students first, and then we can invite the rest of the students in the pool second. Maybe it's because those students have come from schools where we've seen history, or maybe they have already expressed an interest in Southwestern, or maybe they are just in a region where we have had great success in recruiting. That might be what's particularly helpful in driving that score. I think you've all heard about predictive modeling, and so those things hopefully make a little sense. But the fact that I can empower individuals to run their own lists of prospects, the fact that I can empower them to look and see who all from their pool has actually visited, or who in their pool is a first-gen student. Maybe we're doing a first-gen initiative. All that data being inside, able to run a list just as quickly as possible, it really does help us not only with internal goals, but territory goals, large institutional goals, because it's such a user-friendly system. And I feel like I want to turn it on. I feel like there's a lot of interest. So.
That's fine. You're ready to do the sharing, and I think that's the other part of this. And you know, I'm involved in technology, and started my own technology company. When we started my CCA, which turned into Guided Path, having it be user-friendly is a key. Having it meet those unique needs, like you said, higher ed goals are different, and your institutional needs and your business needs are different than a manufacturer or something like that. But also having those analytics, so see where you're at. Are you meeting your goals? Who fits in those categories? That's all really important to be able to look at. So
okay, I'm going to share this part of it. We're going to take a look quick. And let me do a little bit of blow up. Cindy, let me know when it gets to a size that,
I'll let our audience, you guys tell us, because I have a big screen. So to me, it looks fine, but
I can't see the chat while I'm sharing my screen. So help.
Okay, yeah, I've got it. So looks good, Ellen. Okay, all right.
Perfect. So what's really important here is that I am sharing with you my child. So I'm very comfortable in sharing who is on the screen, because my children know they also are my guinea pigs sometimes. I know that I saw a couple of quick elements of chat pop up, and I want to highlight a few things. Right here is a number of people were asking about demonstrated interest. You can see on the screen how Slate will track demonstrated interest. Purple is an event. Pink is when they logged in. Green is when an email was sent. Yellow is when an email was opened. Blue was when an email was clicked. And gray is different sorts of interactions that are present and on the student screen. So that is one thing that is particularly interesting, is that this student had some interaction at the beginning, but seemed to kind of ramp up a little bit more in early January. And then as it went on over time, it slowed down a little bit. And so you can kind of see a wave in regard to that. And I'm not following the question, Cindy, so you may have things.
Is it automatic? So Michelle asked, is this automatic for every school that uses Slate? Are they able to see that, or do they pick different features or things that they have?
This activity history is a pretty standard feature for the institutions that use Slate, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Kate says, I think it was important to note that colleges can customize the fields that they pull from Slate. So, there are configurations, you can set up certain configurations. She says, for example, where she worked, they did not track demonstrated interest. So that and might,
this isn't,
and some might have it and some might not.
Right. And I wouldn't say that this is a demonstrated interest tracker. This is just kind of an interaction tracker. We aren't an institution that uses demonstrated interest per se, but this just really shows how students have interacted with us. And it's kind of, I've just found it fascinating to see, is it a big cluster or is it all spread out? Everybody kind of operates in their same mode. I think someone else asked, are you able to see
how many times a student visits the website?
Yeah, so I was going to show that a little bit. It may show it better on timeline. And so, so you can see here that she went to a visit page. She clicked off of an email and went to a visit page. She went to the My Decision page. She went and checked on her status a couple of different times. And then Slate gets pretty sophisticated. You can see she did it off of an iPhone here. She was using Chrome. I mean, it tells us some pretty savvy details that we can then turn around and use in other ways. This is an old email, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to see statistics. Hold on just a second. Nope. We can track statistics. We sent 900 emails. 700 of them were sent to viable email addresses. 650 were open. 550 were clicked. They went to these specific websites after reading the email. And so we know that our Twitter feed is particularly important, or we know that our YouTube feed is highly clicked on from individual emails that we send. So it is something that we look at, and is something we do see. How many web pages are they going to? What pages are they going to make sure that those are meeting students' needs as well. So the data analytics that comes out of this is crazy compared to what other tools that we have used, or when we lived back in the paper world, for sure.
So Jeff asked about your likelihood to enroll score. How accurate is it? What percentage of time does it nail it? How is it non-predictive? So where is that, and how do you calculate that?
So it is something that is calculated by our outside consultant. And I will tell you, we don't use it to, I have never gone back and retroactively said, oh, look, 25 students who said it had the highest score of likelihood to enroll actually really enrolled. We use it as a tool to begin to hone down, how do we manage 2,500 apps among 8 staff members to get them from admission to enrollment. So it is just a marker for us. Now, other institutions are probably far more data centric than I am, and I will own that I use data in certain ways. But I will not say that I live and die off of the intent to apply or intent to enroll score. And I think that's important because these are humans. They're not just data points. Right. And sometimes that fascinating kid that is not in your intent to enroll category found Southwestern and absolutely has loved it. And other times they may, be off the charts and turn you down. So sometimes data is only as good as we want to use it for, and we still have to remember behind that data point as a human, and how we treat that human in the process is really important.
I think that's a very good point too. And I appreciate the fact that you have that. I mean, that reflects your whole mission and everything as a university. Is this is a tool, but this doesn't take over what we do or how we do it.
That's right.
So somebody else asked about race and how that is, is it self-reported, or do you pull that from other data? How do you use that in terms of what you're doing?
Race at Southwestern is a optional data point from any source that we collect it from, whether that is the optionality of listing it in the application, whether it's the optional element of putting it on the SAT or the ACT score, or filling it out in different components that we might have along the way. So it very much is a self-reported. Students can report themselves as multiracial, and we acknowledge and respect that, especially in a state in which many multiracial families are prevalent. And so we allow them to self-report.
So what about, so Sylvia brought up a good question about what about students who don't have access, who, they're not opening things on email or their phones, or, how are they able to basically, are they being left out of this process if they don't have access for that?
I think it's rare that students don't have access from some place. It may not be that they have a lovely computer set up in an office in their home, but the beauty of most of our application methods is that they have now been customized to be able to be used on phones. They can be used in public settings like a library or a college resource center at a school. And so a lot of students are connecting. And it is very rare. I mean, I don't know that we've received one paper application this year. It is very rare that we see that as a format in which data is collected. So when students apply, 99.9% of the time, they're applying electronically. So it's coming to us from an electronic source somehow. And we let them know that we're going to be communicating back with them in their personal admission portal through that electronic source. So we encourage them to check their email. We do still send the thick packet when they have been admitted to let them know that that is indeed the case. That's a fun part of the college process. And this process is already so stressful. And I think the fun has gone out of it in a lot of ways, that we still want there to be fun in this process. But a lot of communication is electronically. You see here on my own daughter's screen, she did a lot on her phone, and it's pretty rare. Those students for whom don't have technological resources, and if there has been one thing that this pandemic has shown us is how limited things can really be, I would share with you that communication with their admission office may be, and their admission officer may be the best resource. Making a quick phone call, utilizing their counselor. We're still here, but this technology does allow us to get things out faster. One of the challenges of the pandemic has been that mail has been particularly slow, but the release of a decision can go out particularly fast. And so, we have not, I work with a group of really low income students. They text me all the time. So they're on their phones. If that's the only source they have, they're on their phones.
Yep.
So I think that while they may still be limited, there is a resource that they can tap into.
Yeah. So but that brings up a good point for international students, because they might be, they're doing WhatsApp. They're not doing,
Right.
text messaging and stuff like that. So does it capture that as well?
I think that varies from institution to institution, how they capture that. I know that a lot of times what I will personally do, as I just mentioned, my kids are texting me, is I will go in and I will record, had text conversation with Cindy. She was raising these issues. And so I will go into Slate and what you're seeing now, and I will add a new interaction that I texted Cindy. We are top 2. That interaction is there. And if anybody ever gets run over by the bus, then they know kind of where Cindy is along the way and what guidance they need to provide in my absence. So different institutions have different ways in which they're capturing information, recording information, linking it back to Slate. Some components of Slate allow you to text out of it and record those messages back in. Other institutions are using other ways to gather that data. And as somebody alluded to earlier, there is a lot of individuality about Slate. And I think that's one of the things that makes it a great product, is that what I do as a small liberal arts college that is working with right around 5,000 apps, and what the University of Texas does with an applicant pool that's much larger and much differently, we can customize it to meet our individual needs. We can use the components that we want to use, or don't use other components. And so that's where the Slate community really teaches each other, really networks really well together. People will put questions out in message boards and make a real difference in what they can do. And sometimes I've learned things from a big school that then internally I've tweaked slightly to fit our model or our needs. And they've been game changers along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do that in Maya Learning as well. A lot of the schools will have, they have their own configurations, and there's certain things that they may want and certain things that so having those options though, and just having that customization is really nice.
Sure.
So there are a lot of questions about just, predictive enrollment. So you said that that's done by a different company rather than Slate, or you integrate it in. You want to explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Slate does have a predictive enrollment function that is internal that some institutions may use. We are using our predictive modeling from an external company, and we upload it into our own system. And so that once again is going to vary from institution to institution. If you're familiar with partner resources, some use Noel Levitt, some use EAB to do these types of things, and then they'll take those scores and load them in. Or some may be using the Slate model themselves that's already built in. We were just having ours really customized and personalized in a way that our external modeler did for us. And so we have used that design.
So yeah, so again, it could be kind of a combination and type of things.
Sure.
So Zenith says, it is a good question. I don't know the answer to this, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but is there a list anywhere that shows which colleges use Slate?
That's a great question. And there's 1,300, and I was out at the website today just kind of glancing around, and I didn't see a list. But it would probably be a great question every time a rep comes to your visit or you interact with your rep. Do you use Slate? And here's why. Here's one of the things that I'm going to go back and share a different screen now.
And let's have you go ahead. So Christine's going to show us how, as counselors, we can also now use Slate. And so this might be helpful for all of you as well, both on the school side and on the IEC side.
Right. So for our podcast listeners, I am now on the slate.org page. And Slate, in its ever creativeness, about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, realized that there was a little bit of a void that could be filled through their continued creativeness. You all as partners serve as advocates. You want to make sure that you've done everything that you need to do to make sure that your students and your clients are being well served. And they keep saying, I haven't heard a decision yet. I haven't heard a decision. And you're a little nervous. Did all the documents get there? Is everything that needed to be turned in there? Well, through the magic of slate.org, you have the ability to become a partner with us. And what you see here is the registration page that you can click into. It asks you a few questions. And you see here, I'm affiliated with a CBO. I'm an independent counselor. And then they're just wanting to make sure, are you truly an educational consultant? Do you work with students? And if so, you can submit this request form. And then what it allows you to do, if the colleges give permission for this, and that's a big if, not all colleges have gone to the land of slate.org yet. But I'm going to use the Southwestern example to share what we are doing as an example. If I then was an independent counselor and Cindy was my client, and I knew she had applied to Southwestern University and I had access to slate.org, I could look up the students that I knew had applied to Slate schools, and I could see that Cindy's application to Slate is still missing some items. And I could then encourage her to get those items in. Or I could see that a decision has been rendered to Cindy. And so maybe in our next conversation, I might subtly say, hey, have you by chance heard from Southwestern? I knew that they were maybe releasing some decisions lately. And Cindy might say, no, I haven't been to my portal in a while. And
I haven't checked my email. What is that?
Exactly. Haven't checked my email, haven't been to my portal. So we have designed our Slate page where you can see if a student is still incomplete and potentially give us documents that you have permission to help us upload into Slate and get that student to a complete status. We have also chosen, once again, I'm putting an asterisk out there, not every school is allowing this, and so it does vary from school to school, but we have chosen that once a student has seen their decision, that you could then have access to see what the decision is. And so if you are either doing some client tracking on decisions, or if you are trying to update your own recordings of things, you would then be able to see Cindy has been admitted. Unfortunately, Cindy's been put on the wait list, or Cindy has been denied, and kind of go forward from there. If a student never picks up their application decision, which honestly, sadly, sometimes happens, then we open that up at the end of the admission cycle. And that way you could clean up your records to be able to know, of the 5 students I sent to Southwestern, here was their profile, you have that data, and here is the decisions that Southwestern rendered in regard to them. So what I love about the slate.org concept, and Cindy and I were kind of talking about this yesterday in prep, sometimes my best work block is about 8:30 p.m. until midnight, because I'm in meetings all day and I don't have a chance to call you back, or you're doing your work during the day and your best time to do your work is after hours when the institution is closed. If you can go to slate.org and see the statuses on your own time, it allows you to then refocus your energy the next day to, okay, I need to call Cindy because it looks like a decision's been made, but she hasn't picked something up, or Cindy's still incomplete at Southwestern. Let's see if we can figure out what she needs to turn in, and can I help her in regard to that? So it allows you to get information on a time frame that works best for you, even if that is not when the institution is open. And sometimes we know that's how our day evolves, and that can be very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that's much more in keeping with, the world right now, and especially with the pandemic, we've become so online dependent that, yeah, it's very frustrating when you have to wait to do something to somebody's, awake or available, and with all the different time zones and everything that we operate in. So, well, of course, now this has generated a whole lot of other questions, Christine. Sure. So, but let's go back, Jane. Those of you that really have questions that, that you want us to preserve or maybe answer if we don't get time to today, put them in the question and answer, because then I know who's asked them. It's better than in the chat. So I'm going to go to the question and answer first.
Okay.
Jane asked, can you be clear about when you start to record a student's engagement? Like, how do you know when does a student get entered into Slate, and when does it start their journey? And one of the other questions is like, do students, when you're recording their journey in Slate, does it have to be from a link you sent them? But, if they just went to the website on their own, or, clicked on an email on their own, does that get recorded, or does that matter?
So obviously we've got to start somewhere. That's what you're essentially asking about. And it is fascinating to me to sometimes see when that connection actually gets made. One of the cool tricks about Slate is that we have the ability to do some web page tracking with data along the way. And so it could be that we are seeing a student visit our website, but they've kind of been stealth and they haven't necessarily engaged with Southwestern along the way to officially get into the website. So we may be tracking some interactions with them behind the scenes that we don't even know about until whatever that very first source is. They come for a visit, they decide to apply, they call our office, they send us an email, all the normal kind of connection mechanisms are very much there. We still have a huge pool of students in our own world that application first source is the first time we ever hear about them. We know that's not the first time they're hearing about us, but it's just the first time that we have become familiar with them. And so sometimes once we get that email address, once we get that data in, it might be populated that they've actually come and visited us previously, and we do have some of that data that is tracked back to us. But the first source is generally the same kind of first sources that have existed for a long time that I was just sharing along the way. And we do show that in the system. I can go back to Savannah here for just a minute and give you that insight, although she's going to be underneath the block. Hold on, let me go back to that. Okay.
So you mentioned 1,300 schools are using this. Do you know what percentage of four-year universities that would you say it's like 25%, 50% of the colleges? Like,
The colleges that change lives?
No, of just in general, four-year university. And the question is percentage of colleges, and I'm presuming percentage of colleges in the US. But that brings another question. Do colleges, international colleges use Slate?
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, remembering I'm not a Slate employee. And so I certainly don't want to give false information. So I don't know what percentage of all colleges it is, and I don't know what percentage, if they're allowing. I do think they have some international schools, but I don't know what that's certain. So this is my daughter. Again, I went back to her very first source, and you can see she filled out an inquiry card at a college fair that was loaded in. Now, my daughter, I literally went into labor with her on the Southwestern University campus. She has known about Southwestern far more than her 2013 college fair card that she filled out, but this was just the first official interaction. So as wonderful as Slate is, it doesn't allow us to get into the minds and the unknown sources of families quite yet. Thank goodness that technology has not developed. We still have that element of privacy. That's right. And so, like I said, the stealth student can still very much exist. And it always is a head scratcher to me. Like, they obviously just didn't roll over one day, shoot a dart at a map, it lands on Southwestern University, and therefore they decide to apply. How are they learning about me? I don't know that I'll ever know this. I only know when they first engage with us along the way.
What about, so Amanda's asking about social media. So are like, because I know, you have Instagram, Twitter, you mentioned Twitter, Facebook, all those things. So is that part of the tracking as well on Slate, or
I know our marketing department was trying to work on tracking some of that. I don't know if they ever figured that out. I will definitely tell you that is above my technological pay grade, because I am fascinated as to how they can make those connections. And I will, for the good of the conversation, say, my team does not have time to go out to social media sites and look up students. That is always one of those questions that is out there. Sometimes they will, based on something that is in the application, but not always. And I do want to comment, I am the queen of having a million tabs open. So that observation is 100% true. My husband, my staff, everyone does make fun of me about my number of tabs that are open. So
I did notice that too, and I get that comment, and I mean, you're way above what I do. Great. So let's go back to the slate.org. We're getting a lot of questions on that, and I know we're coming back. Do students have to give permission for the counselors to see their Slate accounts?
I saw that question pop in, and I'm going to be 100% truthful. I don't know. I don't know that part of it. I know that I have focused on how can I be a good partner to those that want to join slate.org, and what information are we comfortable in sharing with our partners. But I haven't studied enough to know that what it does in reverse. I do know that relatively recently they had added independent counselors, and that was new. And I was very excited about that, because I feel like that was kind of a gap and in our kind of our partner relationships. And I'm appreciative. Somebody just threw out, in my experience, students do not give counselors permission. So thank you for throwing that out there. I think you probably have to know the name of the student that you're looking up in order to be able to know where you're going. You just can't randomly look people up. And so,
right. Yeah, you have to have some connection or something. Now, what about financial aid? So you said they could see whether an admissions offer has been made, and then sometimes they can see what the admission offer was. Is that correct? And what about financial aid?
That is correct. I do not know of any institution releasing financial aid. I don't know if that is a component that can be released, and I know we are not releasing it. And so I don't think the financial aid component is a part of slate.org. Now, if there was a loud cry from the audience as to how that could be important, it wouldn't surprise me that might come in the evolution. But I do think that becomes a very tricky kind of personal process, and there would probably be some additional protocols that might have to go into consideration in regard to that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But I love that we can release our financial aid awards through it, and students can see it in their personal admission portal as well.
Mm-hmm. So students aren't making their own Slate accounts, right? And so I think that's one of the things people are asking. But yeah, so it's like a tool that it's like you said in the beginning, it's like a CRM that you're using that brings a lot of different tools together. Correct. And helps organize that. But they're still seeing everything through their own portal that they log into at the campus.
That's right. Well, when their application is created, we create their personal admission portal, and that is where they are able to see things from their end. So let me go in and I can show you that example real quick. There we go. Okay, so this is what Savannah saw from her side of the screen, that she was able to see, look, all my parts and pieces have arrived with the green checks. My application is complete. They arrived in a timely fashion. All right, this is great. And then there are various status updates that are highlighted here that she can see. And here is her financial aid award that she can look at. Here is, let me go back one. Oh, we have a little bit of fun. I'm going to see if I can still see it. Sav is about to graduate from college, so I feel like most definitely I can show this information without violating her. That's the one I want to see. Oh, she may have been in the generation before the confetti. We have this cool black and yellow confetti that falls down. This is her admission notification that she has been admitted. And we currently have cool black and yellow confetti because that's our school colors that fall down. So this was her admission decision that came out first. Then she got her scholarship award. And then she got a tuition exchange scholarship because her mom works at the university. And then she got her financial aid award. And then that was her withdrawal notification internally. So students have access to that whole sequence in one place for our institution. And I know lots of schools are going to portals to release information. So we're not anything special or sexy in regard to that. That is, that's very much just kind of standard practice with a lot of schools these days.
So in conclusion, and we've got 5 minutes left. I mean, we could spend a whole nother 2 hours talking about all this stuff. And I know, we've had well over 100 people on the call today. So thank you everyone for joining us. And I know that other people will be listening later on too. So what would you advise us? How can we, in our role as counselors and advisors, help you? From the university side, looking at this technology and things, what advice do you have for us that we could recommend to students and parents that would be most helpful to you, Christine?
I think, and this is a really great question with a very fluctuating answer. And I want to do a quick shout out. I just put my information in the chat. If there are specific questions that we don't get to, Cindy and I'll do some follow-up after the event today to try to make sure we've answered questions. But if you have specific questions of me, feel free to send them my way. I'm happy to answer as my knowledge base allows me to. It's not shocking that we're really going through a change in the profession. I was having lunch with a representative from the University of Rochester right before we started today, and we were having the conversation of what will next year really look like? What will we keep in the virtual space? What will return to what was before? What's that combination going to look like? I think the biggest thing that I hope remains out of this, and it's something I have always felt, but I feel this year may have even been more so in the process, is we can always do much better for each other if we just talk. whether that's an email, whether that's a phone call, whether that's empowering your student to reach out to the admission counselor. We have had to be here helping your students in a very different way because they have not been able to come to our campuses in the same way. And so they might not be able to sit in the info session in the same way. Whether they're very veteran and very knowledgeable or whether they're a first gen kid, I hope you will empower them that the people that work in admission offices are not their foes, they're their friends. And maybe friends isn't the right word, they're their resources.
They're their advocates, right?
And they're their advocates, right? We can't always say yes. And so I think the friend part is probably not the right language, but I do think we're friendly people that want to help students and families make the right choices and do the right things. And so in the days and ages of limited visitation and lots of Zooms, take advantage of these opportunities. One of the beautiful things about our Slate experiences with our programs is that we have had kids from more international high schools and more out-of-state schools engage with us because they're not having to make that trek to Texas yet. They're doing that out-of-state search in the resources that they have, and it has allowed them to really engage with us in unique ways. So take advantage of that, especially if your family is financially strapped. And this is the best way to conduct the college search, is to take advantage of the virtual. Have us reach out if we need to. You know, my kid is really shy. I think they're a great fit for Southwestern. I've encouraged them to do all these things with you, but if you reached out to them, it would be amazing. My staff would jump all over a phone call from a partner colleague like you to be able to do something like that. We know they're tired. We're tired. We're all tired of Zoom. And so I especially say thank you today, no matter which format you're listening in. But I think that now more than ever, the humanistic side of admission may come back to the forefront of what we're doing. And the partnership between independents and institutions or high school counselors is so much more vital. I know my high school counseling colleagues, because of the remote element, have felt very isolated, and I hate it for them. They try to be great advocates. You all are fantastic advocates, but we're here to be good partners. And so let us know how we can support you, whether it's presenting for you, whether it's meeting one-on-one with your students. If we're smart, these are good partnerships worth having.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. And, you know, and it all goes back to what we talked about in the beginning with, you know, what's your passion? And, you know, we're all share that passion, you know, on all sides of the desk. And that's working with students and families and helping them, because it's ultimately our next generation. I mean, we've talked a lot about Gen Z and what that looks like and all too. And, you know, it's helping them, and that's where our future is. So I appreciate that. And I think encouraging communication is key. So we have tons, and we do, there are lots of questions we didn't get to. I will be, I'll jot these questions down and do what I can, and then I'll send others on to you. So
that sounds great.
Thank you, Christine. I love having you. All of you come back. I wrote down like 5 different other topics we could cover. So it's like
your colleagues they really are a great group that ask great questions. They make for a fun session. And so Cindy, you know, I'll be back for you and your colleagues anytime that you'll let me.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And this concludes our session for today. Please join us next week or in 2 weeks. So I'm doing Friday forums now. I've set up a schedule so you guys can put it on your calendars. I'm going to try and do the first and the third Friday of each month. So that's the third Friday will be April 16th. So it'll be right after tax day. And we're going to be talking about a brand new index. So it's not a rating, but it's a college equity index. And actually 3 of our colleagues have put this together. They just released it. Dr. Monica Randall, Dr. Deborah Felix, and Sydney Montgomery are going to be joining me, and they're going to talk about their college equity index. Let me spit that out, and what it means, what they did, what they learned. I've looked at it. It was actually very shocking to see some of the things that students of color, Black students and Indigenous students have to put up with in colleges, even ones that they think are very accepting and open. So I think you'll learn a lot, and it'll be very interesting to have them here in April. So enjoy weekend. Again, thank you, Christine. And thank you everyone for being here. And I will see you again in 2 weeks. I'll have this out and available on my website at cindymcdonald.com. And so you'll be able to see that and watch it again. So have a good weekend. Thank you very much.